Welcome back to How To with Paul. Today, on this 1957 Chevy, we have already showed you how to remove the distributor. We have showed you how to install the Pertronix Igniter 2 module and Pertronix Flamethrower 2 coil. Now we'll be showing you how to reinstall your distributor into the vehicle and time the vehicle. Stay tuned. Okay, welcome back to How To with Paul. We are working on replacing the points out of my 57 Chevy and putting a Pertronix Igniter 2 electronic ignition module. I want to retain as much as possible all the stock look, stock appearance, stock parts. I don't like to change much on the car. Everything's pretty much original on this car, including the Rochester 4Jet, not to be mistaken with a Quadrajet. They are different. Anyway, we've done a previous video of installing the stuff into the distributor. I now have the new distributor. It's all sitting here. Well, not new distributor, but my original distributor now is electronic ignition. We've got the pickup in there. We've got the rotors installed. I went and got a new gasket for the distributor because I had noticed that it was pretty well torn and beat up after taking it off. It's probably 65 years old like the rest of the car. Most of this car was all original when I took it apart. So we're going to go ahead and reinstall this. And if you remember correctly, we talked about noting the direction of the rotor, which way it was pointing. And it was pointing directly 90 degrees that way to the firewall in the previous videos. So that's how I'm going to make sure that I reinstall it. Just making note that this can spin. Doesn't really matter what this is yet, but we do want to make sure that this rotor lines back up into the right gears down there at the bottom. So holding that gasket at the bottom, we're going to go ahead and we're going to guide the distributor back into place. Okay. And we're going to wiggle her on in. And looking at that rotor to make sure that's lined up correctly. We're going to give that a little wiggle. And see that she wants to go back into place. And see, we missed it by a tooth. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's actually missed by one tooth. And we don't want that. So we're going to pull that back up. And we're going to go ahead and skip it over a tooth. Okay, still missed it. Okay, we're going to go one more time. Try to go a little further. And it can be a little tricky to get everything to line back up. Oh, she's being tricky, all right. She wants to go back into that wrong tooth. Okay, pop back in, but see again, it's in the wrong tooth. So this could be a little tricky. You got to keep working at it and make sure you get it in the right spot. Because if you don't, the timing will be in the wrong place and you'll have a hard time getting the distributor to go back in the right direction when you put the timing light on her. I don't know why she's giving me such a hard time, but she is. She just wants to keep going into that wrong spot, but this is a tooth off, and I don't want that. I need it to be 90 degrees here. So I'm going to keep playing with this for a minute until I can get it right, because doing this on camera, well, besides being embarrassing, is kind of tricky because I can't quite maneuver the way I want to. I may have got it there. Try one more time here on camera. Yeah, see, it keeps wanting to go to that wrong spot. We don't want that. We don't want that. We want it in that tooth over, which is there, but for some reason it doesn't want to lock into place, and it's probably because the oil pump has moved a little. I'm probably going to have to rotate the engine to get it to fall into place, which can be tricky. There it goes. And it's dropped into place. And I feel confident in knowing that that is back where it was, just because I did pay attention to how the gear sat And I'm going to go ahead and move it back to there just so we have something to see that it's back to where it should be. The problem I was having is that at the bottom there is a flat keyed shaft that goes down to the oil pump, and it just didn't want to sit in just right. So this, I know, is back in its proper place, and I feel confident in moving on knowing that it's back where it should be. So we're going to move on from that. Now the distributor has seated itself all the way back down. Next thing we're going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and push all these wires out of the way so that we can get the distributor cap back on and get that out of our way. Okay, and you'll feel the distributor the cap has a very specific notch that it fits onto the distributor. You'll know when it's right, because if it's not, you won't be able to feel it. You'll actually see it clip into place there, which it has now done. Then I'm going to go ahead and push these down and then give them a quarter turn. That locks that into place. Same thing with this one. We're going to push it down, give it a quarter turn, and we're just going to make sure that the cap is securely affixed, which it is. Then we'll go ahead and fish our wires out of there, which we're going to need here in a second. I'm going to run them in front of the distributor, and then these will go to the coil that'll be back here. Okay, at this point it may not be a bad idea to go ahead and put the lock plate back in with the bolt. This is the locking plate and the bolt. I'm going to come to that side, which I may be in way of the camera, but it's pretty much the only body position I could be in to get it there. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to try to get that back into place. Sorry if my head's in the way here, which I'm sure it is, but okay, I've got it started. It's a little bit little tedious to get in there and get it started just right, so I kind of kept my mouth shut there just so I can keep a focus on my finger control and what I was doing. All right, so now it's in there. It's not tight. We're going to leave it loose for right now because we still need to actually put a timing light on the engine and start it up and set the timing correctly. But we're going to go ahead and leave these wires out. We're going to reconnect the vacuum advance, just so we don't forget that, which is this vacuum hose. Okay, so that's reattached. We're going to tuck our wires, our spark plug wires, back into the holder so they don't burn on the manifolds. Okay, we'll do the same thing on this side. I hope my head's not in the way. Probably is. Okay, so there we go. We've got our spark plug wires back into their holders. I'm going to switch sides here real quick so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, and here's our wires. There's also something else I want to make sure that you are aware of. This is your ballast resistor. Hopefully you're seeing this. The ballast resistor, and according to Pertronix, you have to take this out of line. The coil will require the full voltage without being through the ballast resistor in order for this system to work properly. So you simply will take off the terminals, which I have already loosened up. And you can do this a couple different ways. This white wire is actually to my electronic choke that I converted to a while back because I was having issues starting, and I got to tell you, the electronic choke was a great improvement. Took away a lot of the issues. So, as I said, you will take this thing out of line. You can do it a couple different ways. You can actually physically remove it and just reconnect these wires all together. You can cut, you can splice, you could do, you could butt splice them together. We also want to make sure that we get that choke wire now in there as well. But if you do this, just keep in mind that these are hot leads and that you need to isolate these, wrap them up with electrical tape, whatever you need to do to keep them from touching any of the metal, because when the ignition is on, they will be hot and they will ground out. But you do not want the ballast resistor in line. You want all these wires to be touched together. and I'll clean that up a little bit later and show you what I did there to do that, because I'm going to cut the wires and I'm probably going to solder them and keep them just nice and clean because I'm just weird that way. Then going back to your coil. Okay, now I ordered a new Pertronix coil, Flamethrower 2, which is made to go with this ignition module. It hasn't come yet. This is the stock one. I could most likely use the stock one, but I'm not gonna. I'm just going to go ahead and show you how to wire it as if it was the new one, and I will replace it when the new one comes. So basically, you're going to slide your coil back into place. You're going to go ahead and hook your coil wire back up. Make sure it's seated nice and well. Okay, and then the rest of the installation is pretty simple, because what you're going to do, we're going to reconnect. This is our oil sending unit wire. I'm going to reconnect that. This is the positive terminal coming off of the ignition system, which was part of this system now. But this is all now, remember, this is all tied in together, one solid loop now, so that the ballast is not in place. You're going to put that on the positive terminal. The coils are marked. There's a positive mark. There's a negative mark. You will also put a connector on here, on your red wire. This is your positive. Your red wire will go to the positive terminal, okay, like that. And then your negative wire, you're going to cut to fit, put your terminal on the end of it, and you'll connect it to its negative. Okay. Tighten all your fittings down, tighten your coil bracket back down, start it up, put a timing light on it, get it timed up, lock your distributor down, put the car back together. I'll finish that on the next video when I actually do get the new coil. Okay, welcome back to How To with Paul. Today we are working on the 57 Chevy. We are finishing up the installation of the Pertronix Igniter 2 points conversion to electronic ignition. As the previous video showed before, I had already installed this. We removed the distributor, we put the distributor back in, and I was waiting for the Flamethrower 2 coil to show up, which has shown up. So we're going to show you the install, show you how to time it, show you that everything is working well, and just finish up the detail work that we didn't finish in the previous videos. So just to cover some basics, okay, we've already reinstalled our distributor. We've put a new gasket underneath the distributor because it was leaking. 63 years old, probably would be. We've left our vacuum advance disconnected, and that's on purpose because we're going to time it. So we've marked the distributor where it came out previously, hoping that it's going to end up at least in the same vicinity to start up and let it run. We've installed the wires to the coil. Here's the coil. We have installed the black wire to the negative side of the coil. It is marked negative. The red wire coming from the Pertronix is going to the positive side of the coil. And also the wire coming off of the ignition of the car is hooked up to the positive side. Not forgetting to mention that we need to remove the ballast resistor out of line because the Pertronix system does not want any restriction on the voltage coming in. So we've cut off the terminals and I have spliced them together. We basically just take the wires that were here, and we've combined them. So there's our wires combined. I will clean that up a little bit later, but for the purpose of the video, I just wanted to get it done. I don't like using butt splices. I will solder it, I will shrink tube it, and I will make it a little cleaner. So our coil wire has been installed. Our main coil wire is installed to the distributor. We're going to go ahead and we're going to get ready to time it. I'm going to show you a few things. Let me get a flashlight here to show you. Okay, we have already put our timing marks. Hopefully we can see this. It's a little hard to see. I'm trying to see what you can see and what I can see. Okay, so there's our timing marks in there. But there is a 0 mark, and then there's the timing on this vehicle is 4 degrees. So with the timing advance disconnected, which we've disconnected, you run the motor to running temperature, you let it idle, 800 to 1000 RPM max. You let it idle, and then it should be sitting at 4 degrees. So we're just going to go ahead and hook our timing light up. okay, which I have already prepped and have standing here. This is my wonderful snap-on timing light. If you don't have one, you should get one. I also recommend that anytime you're using a timing light, which nowadays most cars you don't use, that you get one that has a dial indicator so that you can actually check the timing. Sometimes you can't read the mark. Sometimes you can only read one of the marks, and you can use this to adjust it. But we're going to set it at 0. Okay, so our timing mark is at 0. All the way back. Make sure it's at 0. Okay, we've hooked up our positive. Okay, our positive wire, our negative wire coming from our timing light. Then also you have your spark plug connection, which is going to go to your number 1 spark plug. Doesn't matter what vehicle you're doing, you will always be connecting this to the number 1 spark plug. If you don't know that, on a Chevy V8, driver's side front cylinder is your number 1 cylinder. So I've already gone and I've connected it. You probably won't be able to see the wires, but I am connected to my number 1 spark plug wire down there. Okay, so we've gone ahead and shown you that, and we're going to go ahead and start it up and check the timing. Give me just a second. Oh yeah, here's my 57 Chevy, by the way. Don't mind the mess. Started right up. Must be pretty close on the timing. We're going to let it run for a few minutes. Just let it warm up a little. You don't want it cold engine. We want it warmed up. But we're going to take our timing light and just double check. We've got our advances disconnected. Nothing connected to the timing advance. We're going to shine the timing light in there, and you're going to see that those marks, hopefully, try not to drop my phone, hopefully that those marks will be lined up on the advance. Hopefully you can see that. Right now it's sitting at about 3 degrees, so it's really close. But I'm going to let it warm up, because as you see, it looks like it's already warming up a little bit. Might even give it a little gas every now and then, let it warm up. Sounds pretty good. Okay, now we're going to come back down to idle. And look at that. Wow, we just about nailed that the first try. But I'm going to bump it up just a touch. We're a little low. I'd like to be a little higher. We're sitting at about 3.5. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to twist the distributor ever so slightly toward me to advance it. Okay. There you go. And I don't know if you can see that. Hopefully you can. I'll show the marks here. Probably going to be impossible to see on the camera. I will do another video from the iPhone where I can shove the phone in there. But that's it. That's perfectly timed. That's where I want it. We're going to double check it once we've tightened up our distributor bolt, which is located down here. Okay, we're going to be tightening that up. We'll reconnect the advance and double check that the timing's good. That's it for this episode. Look forward to new ones.